This week on Business Brief, hear how communities along Route 66 are preparing for this year's centennial celebration of the Mother Road. Plus, we hear from the executive director of a big regional investment event about the state of startup funding. Welcome to Business Brief, Missouri Business Alert's podcast focused on the business news and issues shaping the state. My name is Trevor Grandin, and I am joined by my co-host, Juliana Mejia. Juliana, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well, just trying to stay dry in this constant rain.
You know what they say about April showers. Otherwise, let's get to the headlines. The Missouri Senate approved a plan Thursday to replace the state's income tax with a broader sales tax. The bill passed despite opposition from the Senate's Democratic minority and 3 Republicans. Governor Mike Kehoe has expressed confidence in the bill, which is one of his top priorities this year. It needs a final House vote before it will appear as a proposed constitutional amendment on voter ballots this November.
Experts worry President Donald Trump's latest budget proposal could cut funding for job programs. The proposal's Make America Skilled Again grant would cut spending on job training programs by an estimated $1.2 billion, but the administration said it would streamline administrative costs. The plan would send block grants directly to the states, which can decide how to allocate the funds based on their needs. The move is one of multiple attempts by the Trump administration to streamline job training programs' administrative costs.
Wholesale prices surged in March, with the war in Iran causing energy prices to spike. The Producer Price Index, released Tuesday, showed prices rose 0.5% from February to March and 4% from a year earlier. That was a smaller increase than economists had predicted. The producer price reading followed a report last week showing consumer prices jumped 0.9% from February to March, the largest one-month increase in nearly 4 years.
A recent report by White House economists found the United States has a shortage of 10 million houses. The housing section in the annual economic report of the president also details how trimming regulations on home construction could help support more than 2 million manufacturing jobs over the next decade. In March, President Trump responded to housing concerns with 2 executive orders that would require federal agencies to reduce housing regulations and make it easier for smaller banks to offer mortgages. Experts say that additional construction following the executive orders could help stabilize prices, increase home ownership, and fuel faster economic growth.
A Cole County judge ruled the state can use public funds for private school scholarships. A June lawsuit filed by the Missouri National Education Association argued Governor Kehoe's $50 million transfer to private school funds for the Mo Scholars program was unconstitutional, but Judge Brian Stumpy wrote the organization had no standing to sue. Mo Scholars was created in 2021 to run on donations that can be claimed for a 100% tax credit up to a half of donors' tax liability. The Education Association plans to appeal the decision to the Missouri Supreme Court. Juliana, did you know that some people consider Missouri the birthplace of Route 66?
I knew the route mattered, but no idea it was the birthplace.
The telegram responsible for the naming of Route 66 was sent from a hotel in southern Missouri.
And is that why this year's centennial celebration is in Springfield?
Exactly. Where better to celebrate 100 years of Route 66 than the town it was named in? I caught up with a few business leaders along the route to hear how they're getting ready for the expected influx of travelers along the Mother Road. Phyllis Ferguson was just as surprised as everyone else after her motel ranked among the top historic hotels in America.
When I started looking at that list, I was a lot overwhelmed because, these are the big boys, so to speak. And, we're just this little motor court on Route 66 in Springfield, Missouri.
Ferguson's Rockwood Motor Court was the only motel on the list of almost 300 historic inns and lodges. The list is curated by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Despite her surprise, Ferguson knows exactly why her motor court was included.
were the oldest in operation, having been built and started operating in 1929. The next oldest one was opened in 1935, and it is part of our country's history.
The Rockwood Motor Court is a member of a particular set of businesses that are receiving an influx of attention this year. Those are businesses that call Route 66 home. In this 100th year of the Mother Road, communities up and down the byway are taking advantage of an influx in tourism.
I mean, they built Route 66 and then the main streets sprung up around them, or they drove them down main streets in a town that was already there. And that is where the things that are of value to people tend to live.
That's Jennifer Wilding, a community engagement advisor for the Kansas City Federal Reserve. In February, she released a report about the use of route-based tourism in Oklahoma. When Route 66 was first built, it was an economic lifeline for many towns, but construction of the interstate system took that away.
They can tell you the day, date, and time when the interstate opened nearby, and they count that as kind of this is when the town died.
Wilding's report cited a 2011 study from Rutgers University that measured the modern economic output of Route 66. A conservative estimate found that the road produces an annual gain of 2,400 jobs, $90 million in income, and $262 million in overall output. That's big money for the businesses along the highway, and as Phyllis Ferguson points out, an important source of tax revenue for rural cities.
And all along the way, they're dropping dollars. Those dollars go into things like public safety. They go into public infrastructure. So those Route 66 travelers are also helping us pay for our police and fire departments and for our roadways.
Some cities were early adopters of the Route 66 mentality. Erica Downing is the vice president of the Cuba Chamber of Commerce, and she says the town's population sometimes doubles on the weekends.
I mean, me personally, I get my gas on Thursday night because on Friday, you almost can't get in to a pump.
The loss of tourism spurred by the introduction of the interstate system coincided with the shuttering of 2 of Cuba's industrial plants. By the end of 1984, Cuba's unemployment had shot up to 21%. Now, Cuba is seen as a success story, thanks in part due to its embrace of the byway. The 15 murals placed throughout town have given it the nickname the Route 66 Mural City.
I think it goes back to a slower time. And, when people did just take a Sunday drive.
Towns up and down Missouri's 317-mile stretch of Route 66 are planning celebrations for its centennial year. Amy Campbell is the tourism director for the Rolla Chamber of Commerce.
Probably since last fall, and a lot, especially into the first of the year, all of our marketing is centered around Route 66, just again, trying to capture those people traveling in the area and try to pull them off the interstate.
One way to pull tourists into town? Photo opportunities. The Missouri Route 66 Centennial Commission offered $15,000 sponsorships to the 10 counties along the route's path. That money went toward interactive signs shaped like the iconic Route 66 shield. Rolla's sign sits in a park built on top of an old section of the route.
By now people want to post things on their social media and like how many cool places can you take a picture at, and kind of create your own like documentary, if you will, with videos or photos for Route 66.
For some businesses, like the Rockwood Motor Court, the 100th year celebration has been a long time coming, especially since Ferguson serves on the state's Centennial Commission.
It was announced last year on April 30th that the kickoff festival would be in Springfield, Missouri, and we booked out our 10 rooms in an hour and 20 minutes. Pretty quick.
For 100 years, Route 66 has been an asphalt artery of Americana, a symbol of nostalgia and a reminder of a simpler, slower time.
That kind of magical spirit of Route 66 that calls people to it, to find out about our country again, to, drive through the heartland of America and discover what everyday, regular American folks like me and the others they meet along the road are like.
While many towns are using this celebration to honor the byway's past, They also look toward the next 100 years and a new generation of travelers who want to get their kicks on Route 66. Our next story looks at the state of startup funding in Missouri.
What's going on with early stage investing?
Well, lots. But specific to this story, Invest Midwest, a big annual investment conference, is returning to Kansas City Tuesday and Wednesday. It'll feature startups from across the region pitching to investors.
Sounds like a high-stakes opportunity for young companies.
It can be. Ahead of the event, reporter Emma Weidert talked with Invest Midwest Executive Director Claire Kinlaw about the conference, trends in startup investing, and the disruptive role of artificial intelligence. Here's part of that conversation.
Claire Kinlaw, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So, to get started, can you tell me a little bit about your role as Executive Director of Invest Midwest?
Sure. Invest Midwest is a 26-year old community. We convene a conference once a year to collide entrepreneurs and investors together to grow and scale up great companies here in the Midwest. I'm the Executive Director, so my role is to design and execute on organizing the conference every year. And we, in addition to our one big conference, we do several smaller networking events with our community each year.
What makes this event different from other startup or venture capital conferences?
We are broadly Midwest, so we are not tied to a specific city, a specific state. We are also broad in our technology focus. So we cross everything from agriculture, medical technologies, digital health technologies, supply chain technologies, other kind of digital technologies. Our mission is to connect ecosystems across the Midwest so that we rise all boats.
What trends are you seeing right now in Midwest startup funding?
It's tough out there. It's an unstable geopolitical world. Even before sort of that kind of challenge to companies, venture funds managers, those who raise funds so that they can invest in companies, they've had a hard time the last few years garnering additional capital to come into their funds. Some of that's just economics of the situation and lower appetite for risk, but it's also perhaps fewer exits so that there isn't money coming out of successful companies. It's not the easiest time to be raising capital. That said, good companies are still raising money, and certainly many things to do with AI are garnering a lot of attention.
Speaking of AI, how is AI changing the way investors evaluate startups when deciding whether to invest?
Any company that isn't using AI for its own internal efficiencies and expanding the patterns that they can discern for their particular solutions isn't going to fare very well. If you're asking how the investment world is using AI, that's an interesting question. Like in any industry, those who do the grunt work sort of at the bottom of the food chain, a lot of that can be done by AI. Nevertheless, most investors I talk to they're still going to want personal contact with the company that they're going to invest. They're going to want to look eyeball to eyeball across the table to decide whether they're going to put their capital in that company.
Where do you see Midwest innovation heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I hope where it's heading is that we unlock a greater appetite for investing in high risk, high reward investments. We have money in the Midwest. We support our communities and our philanthropic institutions very generously. We have a different culture that needs to be developed for investing into high risk, high reward things. So that is where Invest Midwest hopes to do our part to encourage that.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Claire.
Thank you very much, Emma.
It's time for us to get into our words of the week. Juliana, what is your word this week?
My words are verified dispensary.
So I'm guessing we're talking about cannabis.
We are. As Missouri's cannabis market continues to grow, state regulators say there's confusion about what dispensaries and products are actually licensed and regulated. So the state recently launched an effort to address that.
What all does that entail?
The program gives licensed dispensaries a state-issued decal to display in their windows. State officials keep an interactive map of approved dispensary locations, and they offer guidance on how consumers can identify regulated cannabis products.
Okay, so why all this focus on verification? What's the state trying to guard against?
Well, Missouri's regulated cannabis market faces continued competition from unregulated sellers of hemp-derived products that don't face the same testing or oversight. State officials have raised concerns about those products, and the Missouri Attorney General issued cease and desist letters to 33 unlicensed retailers in late March.
Okay, so there's a whole lot going on there. Is this program making any kind of dent?
Well, it's still early, but dispensaries say they welcome the verification program and that it's helping build trust with customers. What is your word, Trevor?
My word this week is baggage.
Okay, that could mean a whole bunch of things.
It could, but I mean in the literal sense. Airlines are increasing baggage fees to compensate for growing fuel costs as a result of the Iran war. Jet fuel typically comprises about 1/3 of airline operating costs, meaning any sort of volatility with the costs of fuel can heavily impact operations.
Wow, that's especially difficult now as the highest season for travel is about to start. Is Missouri going to be affected?
Yeah, Missouri is no exception. Southwest Airlines is the biggest carrier in the state's 2 largest airports. They announced an additional $10 charge for passengers' first and second bags. Delta and American Airlines have also increased their luggage fees.
Are those fees the only thing that's going up?
Unfortunately, this may only be the beginning. Experts expect fares to become more expensive, and some airlines are considering focusing on their busiest routes and cutting less popular trips.
A road trip sounds really good right about now.
For our closing thought, here's Jennifer Wilding of the Kansas City Federal Reserve talking about the sense of community along Route 66.
If you are in Illinois, you are aware of what's happening in California on Route 66. And it's a long town along Route 66 where people know each other, they respect and appreciate each other, and they have fun.
For my co-host, Juliana Mejia, and editors Brianne Tremper, Kelly DeRook, and Michael Stacy, I'm Trevor Grandin. This has been Business Brief. Thanks for listening.